really enjoyable episode of TNA Impact tonight, but that's not what we're here to discuss. I'm gonna cover a few topics on the show that I really liked from Impact tonight because I thought the show was really good. It was only one thing that I had a problem with, and I'll get it because the main topic of this, as y'all can see from the title, is my predictions for TNA Rebellion coming up this weekend. But let me turn this. Wait, nope. Yeah, turn that off. Uh, but only thing I had a problem with from the show is Rosemary taking a loss to JC Jane. I felt like that was kind of stupid. It didn't make sense because even though she evened up the odds and made them lose, I guess last week, her fatal in JC Jane being the one of fatal influence to beat her doesn't make sense. If it was Fallon Henley, then it could be justified because she was the women's North American champion for a little bit on NXT. But JC Jane, all she's ever held in NXT is a tag title. And you're talking about Rosemary, who's, if I'm not mistaken, been a TNA Knockouts champion before, maybe more than once. Because it was a period where I didn't watch TNA for a little bit, but she's one of the more established women in TNA. So her losing isn't a problem. It's just her losing to JC Jane, and the match was bad. This was the only bad match on the card tonight on Impact. But some of the main things that I liked is the segment that Masha Slamovich and Tessa Blanchard had. I feel like that segment was really good and it helped advance their story. And then also Tessa Blanchard having the match. She was wrestling some random local talent, but the match was actually a decent match. And even though she won it quickly, the what's her name, Missa Kate or whatever, she looked solid and she did a good job in the match for somebody that had to lose in under 5 minutes. It was actually a solid match. It wasn't like it was believable. It was a believable opponent. Not that you think she'll win, but that she can at least put up a fight, and that's what she did. And obviously, Tessa Blanchard got the win, and I like having wrestlers wrestle before their big matches so they don't get rusty going into their match. So I also enjoyed the main event with Joe Hendry and Elijah teaming up to take on Frankie Kazarian and All Ego because they had to tell the story of can they coexist knowing they're going into a triple threat match. And then Elijah, he has a torn rotator cuff, but he got Elijah to have his back and he's been wrestling consistently, so he's ready to go. So they did a good job with that. All Ego ended up leaving the ring and just abandoning Frankie Kazarian. He didn't go super far. He just watched him take the loss as Elijah pinned him. 1, 2, 3, and Elijah and Joe Hendry got the win. Obviously, not gonna have your world, or unless they could have planted the seeds of Joe Hendry losing since Ethan Page did beat him when he challenged for the NXT championship. I feel like this would have been better if it was just a straight up match with them, 1-on-1. Then Frankie called his shot after the match because they're saying that it's a triple threat match. So I kind of don't like that. It would have been cool if Joe Hendry got his win back, and then in the future you could do it a third time down the line as long as you had his partnership. But the main event was good. I enjoyed it. I'm still thinking of, well, I'm getting to what I'm thinking about Joe Hendry and the world title. As I'm gonna do my predictions for TNA Rebellion now. And one more thing from Donna, or whoa, there's a lot of wrestling in 1 week, so forgive me. Another thing from Impact that I liked was after Rosemary, when she got attacked after the match, Xia Li and Lee Ching Lee came out there to repay the favor of her helping them get the win last week. So they're quickly turning Rosemary into a baby face again. So I like that. I don't have no problem with that. Her being a baby face, I think that's cool. And her doing it with Brookside, I think they could tell a solid story that fans would be invested in. Because I'm definitely invested in it. And I'm ready to see what they do with it. But speaking of that, the first match is going to be on the Countdown show. Rosemary, Zaya Brookside, and Lee King Lee team up to take on Fatal Influence, which is JC James, Fallon Henley, and Jasmine Nix. Now, even though they had this partnership, they do need to mention the stuff that's going on between both brands because there's been some tension between Fatal Influence recently on NXT. So I think they need to play into that story a little bit. And I think Rosemary, Zaya Brookside, and Lee Ching Lee got to get the win, especially with the story they're telling with Rosemary and Zaya Brookside. So how can Zaya Brookside really trust her in this match? But I think you should have Rosemary get the pin in this match. Have her pin JC Jane. Or you now have her pin Fallon Henley because she's the one that's the most established out of the group. Had because it seems like the only way that TNA can win is if it's in a tag team match or a multi-person match. So and have Rosemary, Zara Brookside, and Lee Team Lee win. I think they needed more. think it'll do more for them. And then you can play more. Then NXT, they can lean more into the story of Fatal Influence, potentially splitting up, since they've been telling it the last few weeks with some of the segments with them not getting along all the time. So, but I think it's gonna be a fun six-woman tag team match. It makes sense with this on the countdown show. Fans just coming in, get fans ready for the show, and I think all six women they'll put on a good showing. They'll probably get like 12 to 15 minutes to do some solid stuff. And Zara Brookside, she gonna shine in that match. Cause she'll be able to do some high flying stuff. So yeah, that's the. Then the other matches, these aren't in order. These just how I have them wrote down. But Elijah, he's doing an open challenge, and I think Chad Gable or El Grande Americano, whichever one that, oh, I think it was on WrestleMania when Vikingo was there and he was in the crowd and they announced a partnership with AAA. It was, I think it was Americano, when whoever Chad Gable was he hit Vikingo to start something with him, and I know they're gonna do AAA and NXT, but if they for the pay per view in June, right before Money in the Bank, but they should lean into that story and have AAA do some stuff with the main roster at least a little bit. It don't have to be all the time, but at least a little bit, and do it with one of your upper mid card talents, because I do think Chad Gable is an upper mid carder based off of talent. Not how he's booked, he's a lower mid carder, but based off of talent, he's definitely an upper mid carder. And I think they should tell that story with him and Vikingo. So I think so. This is gonna lead into another match. So I think Chad Gable should accept, or Mel or Grande Americano. Yeah, he should accept this challenge from Elijah. You can have Elijah get the win, or you can have Elijah get the win, give TNA a few wins, because they need it. They need like them, and then that'll be their get back for having Joe Hendry lose so quickly. Made have Elijah embarrass El Grande Americano, because I don't think Elijah is losing this open challenge to be honest, no matter who it is. But I think that would be the most fun option, and you can tell another story with it. Because later that night you had a TNA X Division Championship six-man Ultimate X match with Sydney Akeem, Matt Cardona, Leon Slater, Casey Navarre, and Vikingo, and Moose, who's the champion, of course. And Vikingo's not winning this match, and TNA has a partnership with AAA, which makes all the sense why WWE would have a partnership with them as well. You could have El Grande Americano come out there and cost Vikingo the match. He could be like seconds away from winning. Then you hear El Grande Americano's music and he cost him the match. And then you keep building to them having a one-on-one match at the Worlds Collide pay-per-view that they're doing with WWE and AAA. So I think that's why you have Chad Gable, or you have Chad Gable show up and wrestle Elijah, and Chad Gable gets the win. Then El Grande Americano shows up later and makes Vikingo lose. Obviously, it's the same person, but you could have him show up as two different characters, and he makes two appearances on TNA, and I think that'd be a fun story for them to tell to help with the WWE and AAA collab that they're doing. So I think it'll add some credibility. It'll get Vikingo's name out there some more when you, that's the WWE fans. They'd be like, oh, Chad Gable's feuding with this guy. We don't really know who this is. I don't know much about Vikingo, but he can. I think he can go. I haven't seen much of his matches, but after the Ultimate X match, I definitely have an opinion. But as far as that match, because I kind of skipped the order, because I wanted to talk about those two matches back to back. I do think Leon Slater is winning. That said, he's been telling a story with the system over the last few months. So I think he will be the youngest X Division champion ever. Uh, he's solid on the mic. I think sometimes most of the time his promos delivered. He does have an accent, which is pretty cool. But I think it's his time to become the youngest X Division champion ever. He has chemistry with Moose. He's wrestled with the system. He's been with the Hardys. Been with the Nimmer Brothers. Like, they're putting him in a big spotlight, and he just joined TNA in October. So I think they have high hopes for Leon Slater, and I do think that he's getting this win. Casey Navarre, since AJ Francis lost the triple threat match for the international title, I don't think Casey Navarre is realistically winning. Matt Cardona, he's really just there. Sydney Akeem is going to do some high flying stuff and look really good, but he's not going to win it. Vikingo, like I said, Chad Gable, El Grande, whichever version of him wants to appear, make Vikingo lose, and they could tell that story. At least that's what I think. These are my predictions. I could be completely wrong, but and so it comes down to either Moose or Leon Slater, and I think it's either Moose retaining, which I wouldn't be mad at, but I would love to see Leon Slater win. That's what I'm predicting. Have Mike Santana versus Mustafa Ali in a False Count Anywhere's match. They're tied 1-1. Mike Santana won by countout in the second one. I kind of want Mustafa Ali to win. And I'm a Mike Santana fan, but I want Mustafa Ali to get the win. But I'm predicting Mike's. I want Ali to win, but I'm predicting Mike Santana to get the win because he never got his pin. So he could even submit him and end it that way. It's gonna be a fun match. They done dragged out the feud more than I wanted them to, but it has been solid, so I have no problems with it as of now. Had a fatal four-way women's tag team match. The Elegance brand defending their titles versus Chemical X, which is Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley, versus the Meta Girls, aka Jakar Jackson and Lash Legend, versus Spitfire. I think this one is hard to predict. I don't think Spitfire is getting it back. I don't know if TNA wants to put titles on NXT stars. I mean, they very well could because what's the point of a partnership if titles never change hands? So I think it comes down to the Meta Girls or Meta Girls winning or the Elegance brand retaining, or because the Elegance brand did say they're going to retain by any means necessary. So Maggie Lee and the personal concierge definitely be involved. I'm gonna go with Ash and Heather by Elegance retaining the titles, but I would not be surprised if they put it on the Meta Girls, because they would be, because they're faces on NXT, but they're heels in TNA, so I think that'll definitely get the heat. They might get a few cheers, but that's a TNA crowd there in front of us, so they might get booed because they are the heels in that situation. So I think, and they play the character really well, especially Lash. So I think those are the two options it comes down to, but it's most likely Ash and Heather retaining the Knockouts Tag Team titles. Steve Macklin versus Eric Young for the International Championship. This is going to be a good match. I hope the Northern Armory doesn't get involved, and Steve Macklin is winning this match. And I think he's winning because I don't see him losing his first title defense. I think Eric Young definitely going to get this title at some point. This just isn't the time right now. Steve Macklin gets the win. He could even join Eric Young in the Northern Armory at some point down the line because I don't think that story is over with. But it's going to be a good match. But I'm pretty if Steve Macklin's likely winning. I would be very surprised if Eric Young won and beat Steve Macklin during his first title defense. The Hardy Boys versus the Nemeth Brothers for the tag team titles. Oh, this segment they did when when the Nemeth Brothers went to the Hardy compound, that was hilarious because Ryan, he was like he had a 10-year-old therapist or something. Nick, he was fighting Jeff, and then they were fighting on a pickup truck, and Nick sent him through a table. Then as Ryan, as Matt was drowning him, he just was in these different places, like in this vortex. It was really cool. It was like this real cinematic thing. Like it was a great segment. And the Nimmer brothers walked out with the tag titles. Like Nikki had to get Ryan. He was like, "We got to go," so they walked out. Then Matt, he just kind of no, it was Jeff. He was like staring him down, like he was angry. So it's gonna be a fun match. I'm excited for it. I do think the Nimmer brothers are winning. They walked away with the titles from the Hardy compound. They're gonna be walking away from Rebellion with the tag titles as well. I do see the Nimmer brothers winning because you turn Nick heel just for them not to win. I think that's kind of a waste. So I do see the Nimmer brothers winning. Masha Slamovich versus Tessa Blanchard for the TNA Knockouts Championship. Love Masha Slamovich. I really want her to retain, but this I don't think she will. I'm gonna just have to live with it. Tessa Blanchard is more than likely winning that Knockouts Championship again. Like I said, love Masha Slamovich. Wish she could to keep the title, but she probably won't. They've been building up Tessa Blanchard. She's not having these squash matches for no reason. They're not letting her cut promos. Like she's a good promo. She's definitely good at what she does. She's good at her job. Her the person, that's not what we're here to talk about. But Tessa Blanchard, as far as wrestling goes, she's great, and she should win the world title based off how she's been booked. So I won't be mad at her winning the title. I would just be upset that Masha Slamovich is losing the title, if you get what I'm saying. Then what will likely be the main event, Joe Hendry with a quote-unquote torn rotator's cuff versus All Ego Ethan Page versus Frankie Kazarian for the TNA World title. I hate that Frankie is cashing in the Call Your Shot gauntlet and making this a triple threat match because he's taking the pin. No matter if Ethan or Joe win, Frankie is here to take the pin, and I hate that for him because he was actually but they messed up his run as the Call Your Shot gauntlet winner because they had him losing matches a lot. So him being a world champion just wasn't believable. Like you have with something like that where you get a guaranteed world title shot, you have to be built up. You have to be built up to the point where you're getting wins. You're not taking these losses. Like if you wrestle 10 matches in a 2 month span, you're supposed to go 8-2 in those matches or 7-3. You're not supposed to have a 500 record. That's what it felt like with Frankie. Sometimes it felt like he was under 500 if he wrestled 10 matches. So even though Frankie Kazarian is growing on me, he's losing this match and he's here to take the pin. I wouldn't have been mad at him cashing in after the match to become the champion, but he's going to take the pin. And I think Joe Hendry's retaining. Ethan Page is just here as a placeholder, I guess. This is a way for Joe to get his win back, but without actually pinning him again. Well, no, he didn't pin him the first time. Joe was pinned because it was for the NXT Championship. That's why I wish it would have been a one-on-one match, and it was just them straight up for the TNA World Title, and Joe could get his win back that way. But or maybe they have Ethan Page, but I don't think that's the case because they threw Frankie Kazarian in here. So I think Joe Hendry is winning, and eventually when he does lose the title, he'll probably lose it to Elijah, which I love that. I'm completely behind that story. I want Elijah to be the TNA World Champion, but sucks to be Frankie Kazarian because he's probably taking his pin. If Frankie Kazarian wins, I'll be very surprised. Even though NXT barely gets wins against TNA, Ethan Page is way more likely to win than Frankie Kazarian. But that's it for my TNA Rebellion preview. It is this Sunday on April 27th. I definitely try to check it out. If I can't, I just have to catch it a few days later. Get the review out a few days later. But leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your predictions for TNA Rebellion this weekend.